Tigers Roar. Have, Cody Van.
Mr. Van, do you want to come up forward?
National JOM Association East Central at Large 2024 Teacher of the Year.
A few of us, we heard a couple months ago that there was a big award that was going to be given, and then found out that Cody had been chosen for this. This is not just the Oklahoma JOM, this is the National JOM Conference. So I believe there were maybe 10 teachers that were honored from all over the United States. Literally all 50 states were represented in this conference, and he was one of those 10. So a few of us were able to go to the conference. You got to attend the conference last week.
Yeah.
And then had a big, beautiful banquet for all of the winners. And he was chosen again as the National JOM Association East Central at Large Teacher of the Year for the world. So we just wanted to invite you here so we could tell all of those that you work with, that we can tell the board members, and we can celebrate and let you know just how very proud we are of you. And you might let the ladies know what it is that you do.
So I teach Cherokee language, and I was hoping I'd get just a second to speak, so I appreciate that. And I was just thinking about all the different people in this room that have really helped me along the way. And, you know, I stopped Deanne at the conference, and I just kind of turned her around and I said, you know, this sort of thing isn't just because of one person doing something. I mean, at Tahlequah High School, I mean, Chuck Pack will pop his head into my room and be like, Cody, look at this neat thing. Here, have you thought about using this innovative technology for something to do with teaching Cherokee? And then I'll go into Miss Cloud's office sometimes, and I'll just, you know, kind of run in there and be like, I've got this crazy idea. And she's like, well, that's not crazy enough. Let's add this to it. You know, you can do bigger and better than that. So I had an idea to, you know, make a new class up. And she says, well, hey, I don't think that's going to work. Let's do something that will work, and let's add to that. And, you know, with Deanne, she's the same way. I tell people, you know, she's my bulldog. That if there's anything that seems like there's going to be a problem or something, Deanne, I know she's right here beside me. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey working with TPS. I love it. You know, Lacey, she's the one that opened me up to have this opportunity to work here. So, you know, I just appreciate everybody that's been a part of that. And the biggest thing for me is I'm seeing kids that are enjoying Cherokee language. That's something I've never thought I'd see again. I have kids walking into my room speaking to me in Cherokee. We had the opportunity twice now. We've done a job interview in Cherokee, part of it in Cherokee. We're breaking down walls here at Tahlequah Public Schools. That's an amazing thing. I never thought. And to think that somebody from Greasy, America, would be a part of that, it's such an amazing thing. And I just appreciate all of you, and thank you for taking a chance on me and helping structure me into becoming a decent teacher. And just thank you all. Appreciate it.
Oklahoma is as important as any other place in America, so.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Apologize for that.
Cody, mention
Do we have an option?
mention then your leadership class that you're doing after you take.
1, 2, 3. Got it. Okay, now I'm going to finish this.
Okay, so what Ms. Cloud's talking about with my leadership course is that's the one where she said go bigger on, and I wanted something to where I don't like the statistics that I see with a lot of our Cherokee or Native youth. And a lot of them kind of have this where they're, okay, let's push them through high school, and then they're still scratching their heads not knowing where they're going to go after high school. So we talked about it, we sat down, and we talked about, removing obstacles and achieving results. And that was one of the biggest things about it was, okay, if we don't have kids that want to go to college, well, that's fine. We need productive citizens after they finish high school. So we sat down together and we talked about how do we get kids ready to do that? Well, they need somebody to advocate for. And where better than if they're already in the class, in school for 8 hours a day, at least have a friendly face. Somebody they can go to, say if they work till 1 o'clock in the morning, then they're at school the next day, I'm the teacher that's sitting there saying, okay, do you have a pencil? Do you have your paper with you? Did you do your homework last night? Do you need help with it? And again, Chuck came in for me there. I've had a kid with math problems where I'm like, hey, I don't know this. And, run him into my classroom to help. And these kids it's not a miracle worker yet, but they're responding to it and they're gaining from it. Their attendance is coming up. They're being more compliant and that sort of thing. So I think that we're well on our way to having a good class with that leadership program. And it's helping them I tell them, you don't have to go to college. It would be wonderful if you do. But what you do have to do is you have to be productive. So you have to go out into society and make something of yourself. So I tell them those simple things like, whenever they say, hey, I've got this excuse and that excuse, I'm the teacher that tells them, well, you can't tell that to the person that's going to shut off your electricity. You're going to have to, look up here and do what you're supposed to do. And of course, I do it with a loving smile, and they accept it and go on, But yeah, it's a really good class, and I've enjoyed teaching it. So.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Next, item E, principal and director's report. Academic achievement. First, we're going to have secondary principals and superintendent. So you're gonna start it off?
Yes, I'm gonna start it off. This is, we're gonna talk about academic achievement at the secondary level, which that would mean 6th grade through 12th grade. And that would include our middle school, high school, and Central Academy. And I've got my presenters here, the side principals, and they're gonna be sharing. And then we also have a special guest that's from the high school, a mathematician, a statistics person that's going to do some things just about testing in general. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about student achievement, very briefly. The first thing that John Hattie, which is a great researcher in education, says, to make the most impact, it is teacher efficacy. Teacher efficacy means a teacher believes that they have the skills to be able to teach a kid, to have a child learn, and to have them be successful. And when I look at that, I think of the things that we have in place for that. We have mentors, we have coaches, we have new curriculum. All of these things and the trainings that we provide to try to do that. And years ago, you had applicants after applicants after applicants applying to be a teacher, and that's not so anymore. That we are building and trying to grow, and our principals, they're putting them into classrooms. Abby has them peer, viewing and monitoring, observing other classrooms, stealing great ideas. So we're trying to build that teacher efficacy because that's that first basis for student achievement. The second thing I think I've denied is our new focus for the year, which is every minute matters. And every minute matters. The first thing we're really talking about is student and staff attendance. If you're not here, if you aren't present with us, it is very hard in the limited amount of times, the days that we have to teach you, and if you're not here on either end of that. So we're really trying to, how can we promote that? How can we make you want to be here at school? Post-COVID, get all of that behind us and let's move forward. And then the last thing I think about impact. I think about student achievement and impact, and that's education. Horace Mann says that education is the equalizer of all different conditions of men. public education. He was a public education advocate. So what's the great equalizer? What do we want to give our kids? The best way to get out of poverty, the best way to succeed, whatever background you come from, is a good education. So tonight, you're going to hear about a snapshot in time. You're going to hear about a test. You're going to hear about a score. But know that there are so many other things that you're not going to get to see. Those formative things and those growth things. But we know how important testing is, and we have to get our students prepared. So we're going to start with high school. So I will turn this over to you.
Good evening. Chuck is, yes, he's definitely our statistician. He's the quantitative and I'm the qualitative. So we want to thank you all for letting us present tonight. It is pretty lengthy. We have shortened it. We did present this to our faculty last Friday, and Late Start Friday, because we knew it was important to share with them how did we get here and where we need to grow. So we just want to thank you. I want to also thank Mr. Pack and Mr. Jordan and Mrs. Jaunt for helping with this information. The more we called it think partners, the more we talked about it and thought about it and gave it just a lot of thought, the more we understood and could see where we needed to go and grow. So I really appreciate you all doing that for us tonight. Okay, you ready?
Thank you. So this is slightly different than the way I practice, so basically you have to be my guy. You mentioned his master mentioned John Hattie, who's the hero to many of us. He's in my life, giant in education research, right? How he's moved the needle. You sent me to San Diego to be in conference with him this summer. I gotta tell you, it's a real experience to be in line to get your barbecue. And John Hattie was literally right here in front of me with his Australian accent talking to his grandson about what they were gonna get on their plate. It was just mind-blowing. One of the things that comes out of this Visible Learning Conference is, we put our objectives on the board. So let's call them intended learning targets. So this evening, my intended learning target for you is that we're going to try to compare and contrast state assessment results and explain connections between what we call the Oklahoma Performance Index scores and performance level descriptors. So that's a lot to process. How will you know if I've been successful? So this is you as a student. This is your success criteria. If afterward you can speak confidently about ACT scores and CCRAs, and you can discuss connections between the various scores, and you understand the relationship between scores and performance level descriptors, then we've had success. Fair enough? All right, Jason, let's do this.
Good luck.
Ms. Crocker has done ACT prep for years. I don't know if the rest of you have been involved in that. So to spice this up a little bit and to make it a little more intriguing for you, here are the 5 subject areas on the ACT. So we're going to talk ACT first. It's a riddle. Let's see if you can figure out what is that first one, number 1 right there. Which subject area test is that? That is English, language arts, language and wisdom. You got any guesses on 2? Math. All right, you're figuring this out. Then we've got reading, we have science, and then we have writing. All right, so how is this test made up? Well, your English test has got 75 questions. You get 45 minutes. The kids have about 36 seconds per question. Okay, you got these. It's a time test. The math test, 60 questions, 60 minutes. So you get a minute. Good job. And then the reading test, 40 questions, 35 minutes. The science test, 40 questions, 35 minutes. And the writing test, 1 essay, 40 minutes to compose them. Right. So it's go. Go. So what's on the English test? Well, back in the the mid to 2000s or the mid 2015s or so, somewhere around there, we had end of instruction exams. We could get reports at the school that said, hey, here's your strongest skill by standard, right? We could get down to the weakest. We would look, our kids are weak here, we need to spend our energy on that. ACT will give us 3 reporting categories on the language arts. Production of writing, knowledge of language, conventions of standard English. And so you look at that, and this is kind of a blueprint. Where should we spend our energy and effort to get our most bang for our buck? Those power standards, right down there at the bottom, conventions of standard English. Now, on Friday when we spoke with our faculty, one of our primary goals was to get buy-in by the entire faculty that we all do this. It doesn't matter if I'm the math teacher, I'm speaking with standard English. Right? I'm having my kids respond to me in standard English. Or if I'm the coach, or if I'm the health teacher, if I'm the whatever subject I'm in, we're all doing this. So this is our kids, not my kids, your kids. They're really our tigers we're trying to get this across. 75 questions. The math test, 60 questions. We get to achieve little in math. We do have 3 reporting categories. Preparing for higher math, integrating essential skills and modeling. Preparing for higher math, the ACT will break it out for us a little bit. We get to see how they did in algebra, functions, statistics, number and quantity, and one of them is splitting my mind. So you're gonna see them in just a moment. Reading, 40 questions. Again, 3 reporting categories, and you can see it again where the primary one we wanna make sure we focus on. Then in science, 40 questions, interpreting data, scientific investigation, evaluation of models, inferences. Science, this one's a little tricky for us because our kids also take a state science test. That's this test score. But this test score impacts the composite ACT score. So we do have to give it attention. Our science teacher did quite well. And then the last one is writing, ideas and analysis. We get 4 reporting categories here. Development, organization, language, and use and domain, but not percentage breakdown. It's more of a holistic approach. Alright, back over to Ms.
So this tells us how our kids did. When you first look at this, it looks like our juniors this year, seniors this year, juniors last year, compared to our seniors last year. It's cohort 23 or cohort 24, basically. It looks like we went down from an 18.4 to a 17.3. But we really dove into that. Number one, we had a lot more students take the test. And we also said, okay, we started looking at this through our guiding coalition, and I'll talk about guiding coalition here in a minute, who it comprises of and what we do. What do we need to do? Is this our academic goal? Are we failing? What do we need to do? So we decided that comparing cohort 24 to cohort 23 was apples and oranges. We want to compare apples to apples. So we started having that conversation, and what we came up with, we want to look at growth. So if you look at the next slide, it gives us a better comparison. And you look at, Chuck, can you show them your
Yeah,
growth?
so let me
chart.
come here. I don't know if Jason will let me zoom in. No. Alright, so you've got it in your packets if you wanna get closer. What you're looking at is this is the 22-23 group on the left and the 23-24 on the right. You can see those, you present numbers to a group in a table, it's not all that exotic, right? So the chart will help you a little bit. Notice that the scale is gonna be the same. They both start at 14 and go up to 20. What we're looking for here is, in the next few slides, we're gonna look for trends, where we take a deep dive into, all right, what's happening. So what trends do you notice? Well, we see growth, right? Again, what you're seeing too is the district offers an ACT we've done this for years through our Year Up grant in the fall, and then we take it again as a state test in the spring. So you've got fall and then spring. So this group in 23, their English score, for instance, the first one was a 15.6, and by spring they were 17.4. And you can see that for the others as well. What about these guys? Well, they started at 14.1 and went to 16. So a very first look for us was, wow, this 24 cohort group started lower. So we began to scratch our heads. Why? Why were they lower? Well, back up, to 2020, and March was 2020, and then into that fall of 20. Where were these kids then? Where were these juniors? They were in a critical year. They were in 8th grade, a foundational year. Naturally, we're getting them lower. So we had to work.
So if you look at those, sorry, Chuck.
No,
If
look
you
at the
look at
good
those growth numbers, that's what we decided to focus on. So 22-23 had 1.2 points of cohort growth on the composite ACT, and last year we had 1.1 composite points. So we decided we want to look at that as our goal. And like Chuck said, that lapse in services those kids had their 8th grade year was very detrimental. It's not an excuse, it's just something we're looking at. If you want to look at the next slide, Chuck will explain the standard deviation a little bit better than I will.
So Ms. Matchman just asked, I want to see the distribution of scores. So we did, we just broke it out. So what you see on top is just every kid, I think there are 298 or so kids here, their ACT score, their composite score. Then how do they do on their math? How do they do on their English, their reading, their science score? Compare that to, again, we're still looking for trends, compare that to the 23-24 group. What do we notice? Well, one thing we notice is their standard deviation is lower. The spread in the group is smaller. And the average is lower, which we saw in that previous chart. But you can see that the range, they're typical kids. Okay, we're still scoring on one. Let's see the next slide. I think it's a box plot, a series of box plots. John Tukey gave us this in the early 70s. It began to be popular in 1976 or so. Really, statisticians took off with it, looking at exploratory data analysis, because the way that we received the data from ACT was not pretty graphs and charts. We have a spreadsheet that runs from A to like column ZZ, and it's just numbers, how kids did. And you have to take it and try to make sense of it. So a box plot's one way to do that, and just to not dumb our senses, but this is the composite data, that first bar right there, this is called a whisker, and this is the box and whisker plot. That's your minimum. This first mark is your 25th percentile, your first quartile. The second one is your median, your third quartile, and then your maximum considering outliers. The little dots are outliers. Outliers are those unusual points, the extremely high or extremely low. We'll see some low ones here. How do you identify that? Statisticians have a couple of ways to do it. The way that this one's doing it is you find what's called the interquartile range, which is that box length, multiply by 1.5, put that on top of here and take it off of there, and it forms a fence. Anything above or below those are called the outliers. Those are the interesting values, if you will. So just comparing the two distributions, on map, I'm seeing a lot more high outliers in this group, right? Just as one interesting point. You've got a lot more data in your board map. Feel free to stop me if I'm confusing.
So we gave this to all our faculty, this entire presentation. And the reason why is at the bottom, it kind of gives you, through this next several slides, it shows what they can work on.
Alright, let's see the next one. This is the writing comparison. And still looking for trends. You got 23-24 to 22-23 over here. I think I flipped on, sorry about that. But it's the same.
That's a statistician
The
trick,
same.
right?
Okay. Truth be told, I'm doing this over and over. Several people, one very important person in my life said, "Why have you got it backwards?" And this is my wife. It should be the first years here and this later years, so I switched it, but I failed on this one. And we can go into detail on any of those scores that you want to. Let's see the next slide. Now at the top, you notice it changed. We're not looking for trends anymore. Now we're going to take a deeper dive. So this is really where the faculty jump in and have to look. On the math test, as I explained, we do have preparing for higher math, but that's made up of these subcategories on here. The number and quantity, the algebra, the functions, geometry, and statistics. These guys all go together to make up that one. And so what do I see in the fall of 23 to the spring of 24 with these kiddos, these juniors that took this test? I see that algebra saw the most growth, if you will. That doesn't overly surprise me because a typical junior is in Algebra 2. Right? They're really solidifying their algebra skills. Which brings us to a point that as Gabby B pointed out to us, we gotta figure out how those juniors are, what math class are they in? And we need to be doing the ACT prep there with those kids to give them a better shot at this. We need to be putting the math back in front of them if they're not in a math class.
And science, we had that same discussion with science. Is it really best the path that we're giving students? They typically take biology or physical science their freshman year, and then the other their second year. Well, that sophomore year, they test their junior year. Is that really what's best?
Right. So those are the conversations we're having in our PLCs on Friday morning. The language arts, which I know is important to use, several of you is very close to your heart, like math is to me. You can see, looking deeper, where do we need to go? Why do we need to go there? What's up? That's the intent of these graphics, and those educators are doing that. Let's just keep. Ms. Master said, "You've got to make this 20 minutes."
Yeah.
All right.
We will, and we will sit down with you.
Sure
If you
will.
wanna come up to the high school and you send us an email, we'll be glad to have this conversation with you, because the more you converse about it, the better your understanding is. And it's pretty big.
We just have laid it on there for you. This is the data. This is what our kids did. We're not hiding anything or coloring anything. We're looking for where can we be better. Right? These are the reading scores. It's the same kind of information, same kind of blocks. And then the science. And then finally, the writing. I didn't have. That writing's an interesting piece because in the fall on our district test, we do not give the writing test. In the spring, we do give the writing test. So I didn't have any data to give to compare and contrast. So, as mentioned, what goes into like our accountability system. The ACT math, the reading, writing, and English off the ACT, but not the science. And oh wait, our kids also take a US history test, right? Their junior year. These are tests that are required by state law. So what are these CCRA things? Well, they are college and career ready assessments, what CCRA stands for. So there's a science one, a US history one. Then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the state testing program, parts of where I've been involved, and give you a little anecdotal evidence there. And then finally, what are these performance level descriptors? So let's see, on the science test. What's on the science test? Much like what was on the ACT for math and the other subjects. It's about half life sciences and about half physical sciences. Like Ms. Cloud just said, that's important for us because we give biology to our kids, the life sciences, their freshman year. We do physical sciences their sophomore year, and then it's a hodgepodge for their junior year. We've got to be cognizant of that. We need to respond to that. And how does their test look? This is really important for those teachers to know. If you read the fine print, you're going to see there's 20 clusters of 3 items each, so they've got a similar STEM in their question, and they've got to answer 3 questions based on that STEM. They have 20 of those. They could be 3 multiple choice, or they could be 2 multiple choice and 1 technology enhanced, either one. And they'll have some field test items as well. US history, blew me away because I'm not a professional historian. That's Mr. Jordan. I understand there's US history on the US history test. I expected US history. I did not expect it to only be half. So that's just me. Civics is the other half. And so those teachers have their blueprint. It didn't surprise them. Those history teachers know and expect this. They know that there are 50 operational items and 10 field test items on their test. And you'll see their results. And they're very much. What is this OSTP, this Oklahoma School Testing Program? And so I'm not going to read the slides to you. I want to take you through what's it look like for a kid where every minute truly matters. Formative assessments are happening minute by minute as you're teaching. Just stopping and going, are we moving too fast? Are we too slow? Do you get it? Can you say it back to me? You know, those kinds of things. To the daily assignments, the out the door ticket, if you will, to maybe a weekly quiz, to a unit test, to a quarterly, like a benchmark type assessment, to their state test, a summative assessment. All of these tied to your state standards, your academic standards. Again, ACT tests the English and the math, and the CCRAs are for science and history. On the next slide, how are these CCRAs, how are these state tests developed? Well, the thing to note here, this is the process. I just took this out of our technical documents, our state manuals, if you will. How does this process work? Everywhere we see a yellow bookmark, teachers were involved, Oklahoma teachers were involved in the process. And I've been in each of these. Some of you have been in each of these meetings. A lot of faith in most of these. I say most, okay? So the grade level content standards, you've been in those committees where teachers come together, what should the kids learn, when should they learn? That's your scope and sequence. Teachers help make that, shape that decision. The test designs and what we call blueprints. In other words, how much focus should we give to each standard, right? How many items should be on a test? Teachers are involved in that. The test and item specifications. These are helpful documents to teachers as well to say, hey, math, should the kids know their squares? 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared. So know those facts, be able to recount them, use them. Yes, how far? So it's fun to play with the kids and say, can you count by square? 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49. How high can you go before you go? 12 squared is what mathematicians have said. People that teach math. 12 times 12 is? Thank you. But 13 times 13? There you go. All right. That's the process. 169. Thank you very much. Yes, it is. So how do you go? The test item specifications help you know as a teacher, where should I be pushing my kids? How far should I go? Okay. Then the test item development. That's the crafting of the actual questions, right? But those have to be reviewed for content and bias. Again, teachers bring those. You sit at a table with, a dozen or so other educators, and you're looking at, I remember specifically a geometry problem. And the question involved a telephone pole. And these are supposed to be tested on Oklahoma kids. And I laughed. And they didn't know why I was laughing at them, the folks from the testing company. How many telephone poles in Oklahoma look like this? No. Drive around. Tonight when you take a meeting, look. They came back and said, you're right, there are no telephone. That's a content, or a bias, which inspired geography, so it became a tree. We changed the graphic in there, hey, it's a right triangle kind of problem, we're gonna have a tree. Okay, Western Oklahoma, but anyway. Where we don't see the bookmarks, that's folks in our State Department, that's folks from the testing companies that are controlling. So you'll see when we do the test form selection and creation process, that's somebody behind the scenes, field testing, data analysis, but then operational testing again involves educators. Operational testing that's when we do the trainings, the counselors say, here's what you gotta read, and you say to the kids, and you gotta watch them, they can't go to the bathroom, here's when they can, and all that jazz. So teachers are involved there. The data analysis, it happens by the testing company primarily, and then the PLD development. PLD stands for Performance Level Descriptors, and we're gonna deep dive on that a little bit. The teachers have been in those committees. This is what it means to be proficient. The kid can do these things. Okay? And then we get to the one that's fascinating, all right? Standard setting. So we're on a 6-year cycle. Every 6 years we bring our standards around and we have to revisit them and say, are they still what we want our kids to learn at these appropriate grade levels? We make adjustments. Then the following year we adopt curriculum. And the following year they're tested for the first time. That's the cycle. It happens in ELA, it happens in math, it happens everywhere we have academic standards. Okay, so somebody has to decide how much of this do you have to know to be considered proficient. So the way it worked, the way that I've done it is what's called the briefing book method. And like you receive your board packet, everybody gets a book. And in this book, there are, on the first page, is one of the test questions that the kids just took this spring. And on the last page in the book is a test question. Now the first one was the easiest one, meaning most % correct. And the back one, that's the hardest one, least % correct. And you're handed 3 bookmarks. Okay, so open our notebook, and what you have to think is, take proficient for instance. What is it that my proficient student can do that my basic student can't? And I have to put my bookmark in there. And I find the content place where, what about the basic compared to the below basic? What about the kid that's proficient versus advanced? And you put your bookmarks, your 3 bookmarks in. Those are cut scores. Then you have a conversation at your table about, well, I put it here, where did you put it? And the content's not gonna be, this one might be like, find a midpoint kind of problem. And this one might be a logic problem. They may not be even close to each other in content, but they do each other. You gotta go, all right, I have this kid, I'm thinking of this kid specifically, that was proficient. They could do this, but they couldn't do this one. And that's the cut between advanced and proficient. So your table comes to a decision, and you're in a room, that's 50 or 60 folks. So there's other tables. Everyone does this. The testing company folks and the State Department folks disappear. They go compile all your votes, and they bring them back, and they present to you, this is what you said as a room, go have a conversation. Where should we move? And you start debating about how you should move it and not move it. I remember distinctly a professor from Southwestern, John stood up in the room because we were fighting over algebra 1. The kids really need to know this. No, they don't. Yeah, they do. And he said, folks, it's like getting a driver's license. We're going to be driving down the road. We don't need NASCAR racers. I went, ah. So it really helps set the tone of the room and go, what does it mean to be proficient? Right? What does it mean to do this? All right, so that one, then you revote. You move your scores, you vote again. They disappear, and the folks come back and they put it up on the screen for you and say, hey, if you had used these cut scores on the students this spring, this is what you would have done to the kids that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, the percentage that would have met each of the levels. And this is what you would have done to each of those priority student groups, the kids with disabilities, the kids from various races, all that impact data is shown to you, and then you're told one last time, is this what we want to recommend? So, okay, yes or no, we don't. That then goes to a board that you never meet, and they determine whether they want to adjust that or not. Off we go. That is what standard setting has looked like for me the few times I've been involved. There are other techniques, but that's the one Oklahoma has used, this briefing movement. All right, that was long, I'm sorry. What does it mean to be each of these? This is kind of a short version for you, but advanced students demonstrate superior performance with challenging subject matter. Clearly exhibit readiness for college and career. So when you're putting your bookmark into cut, you're thinking of a kid that can do that versus the kid that's here. So students proficient, demonstrate mastery with appropriate grade level subject matter, and exhibit readiness for college. Likewise for the other areas. But those are your 4 performance level descriptors, which are tied to our state report card, which we'll come back to you and talk about another time. Let's see the next. Fortunately, I said we didn't get, like the EOI days, a fine-grained detail of what standards kids are really good at. But we did, Oklahoma teachers built this with the help of our State Department in the past. What does it mean on the mathematics test to be advanced? Well, you can do these things. Why is this important to math teachers at the high school? This is what we use to shape our pacing calendars. This is what we use to shape our essential standards. Like, do kids really need to know how to find I to an nth power? Like, what's I? It's a complex number. Do they really know how? Well, if they're going to be advanced, they do. Right here it is. Find the value of I to the nth power. Okay. I'll not read all that to you. Let's see the next one. Proficient, and let's just fly on through this. The basic. I want to take it to, let's go one more. English, and I just want to tag that version. Thoroughly comprehend. Oh, by the way, on the advanced, this is a 94% probability of earning a C or better. And those percentages you saw on those other slides as well. So really high chance of earning college credit, here's the idea. If you can thoroughly comprehend, analyze, synthesize information from literary and informational texts. Okay. Who teaches literary and informational text? Yeah, a lot of people teach informational text all across the campus. Maybe a little more specialized on who's teaching literary text. But we are all doing this because it's advanced and thoroughly comprehend, analyze, synthesize. Applying a wide range of close reading skills across a range of subject areas and complexity levels. Just get the next one. Now we're not thoroughly, we're just comprehending, analyzing, synthesizing for proficiency. And we're applying various close reading skills. As opposed to the basic, on the next slide, we're still comprehending, analyzing, and synthesizing, and still information from literary and informational text. And we're applying limited close reading skills. Those are the subtle differences that we as teachers have to take into account. What's going in front of our kids, as well as these others. So, how do we convert a raw score of several questions answered correctly on an ACT subject area test to a specific score? This is what the kids we ask, right? What do I gotta know? How many I gotta get right? It's a fair question. Kids should ask that. So we're gonna tell you about what a raw score is, how do you connect those to your subject area scores, what the heck is an OPI, and how do ACT scores connect to OPIs. So you're a math student, and you want to make a 21. How many questions you gotta get right? Because there were 60 there. How many you gotta get right? Well, if you want to make a 21, you need to get 34 questions right. Now that's going to change from test to test, and ACT is good to give us this data. You can pull it up on their technical manuals, on their release test, and you can see. But it's about half where you need to be to score 21. And on the next slide, English has a similar saga. And it's a little more interesting with language arts because what goes into that language arts score? It's actually you've got those three tests, right? So you're going to get about 42.5% come from your English score. You get 42.5% that come from your reading score, and 15% that comes from your writing score. Okay. If you can get yourself to a combined total there of about 54 points, then you will score a 22. Okay. Let's keep rocking. Let's go one more. Science, similar story. Keep rocking. So this OPI thing. It's short. It's just the Oklahoma Performance Index. It's a scaled score. Yeah, and long, this is where we're talking about the briefing book method. That was researched by Hartel, Beamers, and Miles back in 2012. And that's that conversation I took you a while ago about developing an OPI. So on the next slide, you're going to see, I really wish I could but the say a kid scores that 21 on their math ACT. So here's 21. If they, very few, or there's some, Oklahomans take the SAT. They score a 530 on the math. Then they're considered to get, they get a 300 OPI, Oklahoma Performance Index. That is considered proficient. And this was last set in 2019. In 2019, Oklahoma teachers came together and set the conversion from ACT and SAT to our proficiency scores. Okay, our performance levels.
If they don't take the SAT, is it just then based on the ACT?
What, say again?
If they don't take the SAT, which you said a lot don't, is it then
Yeah, it's
this?
just the ACT. So the district I know of in Oklahoma that really goes more heavily on SAT is Mormon, uses SAT. And so for that school, they're speaking this language. If I say to you, hey, I went to college and my ACT was a 24, you kind of got an idea what that is. But if I said to you, oh, I went to college and my math was a 530, because in our area, our neck of the woods, we speak ACT better than SAT. You land on the coast and it's the reverse. That's it, it just depends on which test you took. But they're leading to the same OPI. That's why we do that, so it allows you to say, oh, what was their performance index? And we'll have a longer conversation about that in the future. But then there's how you get basic, low basic, basic, proficient, and advanced scores. Interesting to note there, do you know what score you need, for instance, to take college algebra as a concurrent student in high school? Do you happen to know?
19.
19 is what you need, but we said 21 is proficient. So really, shouldn't we come back together and look at that again?
There's a disconnect.
There's something missing there. We're requiring, anyway, we need to look at that again. We need to be reconvened. Likewise, here's the ELA to the different performance levels, what you need to score. So, back up just a moment. For instance, to be proficient, you need a combined, between your reading, writing, and English, you need 37.6.
I think Mrs. Mashburn wanted you to talk about OPI and how it's changed this year.
Oh, yes, thank you, that reminded me. All right, so, the way I'll tell this, where I could be the most behind, in 2017, we were under Superintendent Joy Hoffmeister. She was looking at what's called NAEP scores, the National Assessment of Education Progress. It's considered the nation's report card. And she was saying, hey, our scores are out of a line. What the percentage of kids that we say are passing and are proficient is higher than what our NAEP scores are showing. Something's off, teachers come together. So we did. We revisited those scores. She was then very good to communicate to people in the community, to people in the classroom, to people in administrative offices. Hey, the scores are changing. You really should not compare the 2017 scores to the 2016 scores. They're different tests. And she meant different tests because she presented to us, here was what the DOK, the depth of knowledge levels were, level 1's a recall, 2 is requires a little planning, and 3 is like, it's a little harder problem, more involved thinking. On the 2016 until recently, many more DOK 2 and 3 questions than prior. So it's an apples and oranges kind of comparison to the prior 2016, 2017. Similar convening happened this summer for our English language arts and mathematics in grades 3 through 8. We did not address high school, that's ACT. We did address 3 through 8. What was missing was the communication to each of us that those scores, the cut scores, had changed. Now keep in mind, the OPI did not change. You still had to be 300 to be proficient. What did change was what you needed to get to that 300. How many questions you had to get right. And that's not to undersell any of the work of our kids, any of the work of our teachers or administrators. It's doing phenomenal work, which is what pushed us to look more closely at this cohort group. What did they do? How did they do? And I think Ms. Keys is going to show you some good growth you see in our kids when we compare it to the state data. Where are we, right? So that's a coming attraction. Was there something else that I was needing to address?
I have a related question to that, and I know that's not your thing, but being the mathematician that you are, because we now know how those cut scores changed, we can compare
Oh, it's a great question.
apples to apples, correct?
So we, in fact, members of the legislature have requested what's called the technical report. What was the cut score? And those have not been provided. They're not public facing. If you go on our State Department's website, the last technical manual you can find, I think, is the 22 in progress.
So if we did have those, though,
We did have
you
those,
could,
we would be able to
compare.
tell.
We could compare. We could.
We could look
You
at,
could tell.
but we could look at raw scores and make some comparisons. But it still would be challenging because the makeup of the test, you put more hard questions on there than easier questions. So it's still a hard comparison. It really, really is.
So what I wanted to do, just really quickly tell you about what Guiding Coalition is and what our new academic goals are and what we've done already and what we plan to do. So the next slide tells you who our Guiding Coalition people are. And it's basically our curriculum coordinators and our department heads. We meet twice a month at least, sometimes more. And we provide solutions. I'm really proud of the work that this group has done and continues to do because I feel like it's making positive changes all over our school, but especially in academics. On the next slide, this is our new academic goal. We wanna see a 1-point overall composite growth in the cohort this year in our 11th graders. So we will test them this fall and we will test them in the spring, and we wanna see a 1-point growth. And I think we will see that and more. And we're already doing some things to make sure that that happens. We have been visiting with other high-performing schools. And one thing, when we talk about grade card, school report card, I want Chuck to come back because we pulled a piece of data and where we can kind of compare our school to other schools with the same exact socioeconomic. There's like a percentage it even gives you, like we're 90% alike, and Nowata and Sallisaw, tell me some other schools, Guthrie?
So Guthrie was one, Shawnee was one. You go on oklaschools.com, go to reports, and you can say, give me schools that are like this school. And it'll give you, about a dozen schools.
We were up there, like there was no one that was there was one school outperformed us in science, and one school outperformed us in what was the other subject area?
In math, yep.
Other than that, we were at the top in everything. I'm very proud of that. We're gonna continue to do walkthroughs with our admin team. We do the remediation pull-out time, tier 1, 2, and 3 remediation. We have added an extra class of English. We add Read 180, and then they also have an English 1 class. I think we've done that English 1 and 2 now, I'm not for sure. Can't think off the top of my head, sorry. Monthly newsletters about best practices instructionally. We're asking teachers to do peer observations. We are doing PLC time with fidelity. It's life-changing in our schools. They're doing lots of common formative and summative assessments and data discussions. We're putting that data in Edulastic and looking at teaching strategies in this classroom as opposed to that classroom, and how can we come together to make the best strategies for our students. And then bell ringers, we're talking to teachers about teaching bell to bell, and if they have extra time, don't let them get on their cell phones. We want them working on ACT prep, reading library books, doing anything that can help us. And then the next strategy, just some things I've talked about already, is just really drilling down our curriculum scope and sequence and making sure that our learning targets are essential. Having those tier 1, 2, and 3 interventions, and then having Edulastic to really disaggregate that data. On the next slide, we have Success Maker this year. It's a math tool. It's technology, and kids that need some really intense math remediation, they have to spend 15 minutes a day, and it will give them 3 years growth this school year of math. And we're really excited about that. Read 180, I think we have the right people in the right places this year for Read 180. I think we will see tremendous growth in that. Mrs. Crawford knows firsthand how powerful that class is. Roar, kids are doing that tier 3 pullout remediation. We have it in all our core subject areas. And then Tiger Connect is our freshman, basically transition class. We teach kids how to do high school and teach them how to connect with school and how to be successful. And we have Emily Langston and Jimmy Vaughn teaching that, and they are phenomenal. And then the next slide, just our secondary teaching expectations. We are, like I said before, we're happy to go over that with you. And does anyone have any questions on the high school side? Sorry, it was so easy.
It's a big place and a lot of things to go over.
Go on and on, I'm still interested.
Yeah, certainly, that was a long 20 minutes, so apologies for that, but can you speak somewhat confidently about these?
Yes.
Do you know what an OPI is? And you know how a raw score turns into an OPI?
Thank you.
Really hate to go behind that.
No, you're awesome.
I leaned over to Candace Jefferson, who's our instructional coach, and I told her, I said, well, I should have made you get up there and do all this.
Thank you.
Okay, so I really am just gonna go through just score reporting first for each grade level and each subject tested. In 6th and 7th grade, students are tested in ELA and math. And then in 8th grade, they're tested in ELA, math, science, and writing. But the writing actually goes into the ELA score, but it's just a separate test. So You can just go back to the beginning.
Okay, sorry.
For sixth grade ELA. So the sixth grade ELA scores that are on there, just like Chuck reported that, it's gonna be really hard to compare, the growth between 32% and the growth to 43%. But, something that I'm proud of and you'll see throughout the, presentation is that every single grade and every single subject at Tahlequah Middle School was above the state average. And that's our second year in a row to be above the state average in every single grade and subject. And so I'm really just trying to focus on those wins and those successes, rather than the other stuff.
Quick question. This is the percentage you are
Proficient and
and above,
advanced.
okay.
Yes, proficient and advanced. Yes, ma'am. Great question. And so then I'll go to sixth grade math. And so today, just kind of last minute, we went through how far above we were the state average last year, because we were kind of just thinking like, well, we could look at that, and it was very close. I mean, it was just about the same percentage between our scores and the state average last year and our scores and the state average this year. That I can get those to you. It was just kind of like a little last minute thing that we got to thinking about. Seventh grade ELA, 42% were proficient or advanced, and the state average was 39%. Seventh grade math, 32% was our proficient and advanced, and the state average was 29%. Eighth grade ELA was 43%, and then the state average was 40%. Eighth grade math, you can see 35% proficient and advanced, and then the state average was 25%. Eighth grade science, 52% proficient or advanced, and then 35% was the state average. And last year, it was just basically the exact same with them, because we looked at science. Ms. Jefferson is a science teacher, so we really dove into those science scores. So just looking at cohorts, so this group right here are freshmen right now, and you can kind of just see their trends of test scores in relation to state averages. So I think that's pretty impressive for the ELA scores throughout and the growth that they had at the middle school. And so the next one is our current math scores, I'm sorry. Pretty much remaining steady all across the board for our math scores. And then our current eighth graders, you can see, it'll be the next one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Our current eighth graders, you can kind of just see their growth and then compared with the state averages. And then the math scores for that same class, our current eighth graders, you can see our scores compared to the state averages. And then we're going on further to our current seventh graders and see their scores. I'm not gonna read every single one of them to you, but you can kind of just see compared to the state averages. And then the next one, math scores, and these are current seventh graders also, So just different ways that we're trying to support our students, and like Ms. Mashburn says, quoted about, education is what we can give these kids, and we firmly believe that. And it's not just an English teacher's job to teach reading skills. It's not, and that's a big burden to carry for someone that's thinking they're having to teach reading, English skills and writing and all the things. And so we've really embraced with our elective team. They are doing supporting us with reading passages every Wednesday, and we just call them our Wisdom Wednesdays, and they go over a test-taking strategy. And so our whole school is using the same strategy. We did it last year too, so we can just be really consistent with our the language that we use with students. And so they're going through that, and this year they're kind of taking it a step further. Ms. Tinsley's actually our elective department chair, and they're really going to look at the data from that and see who's growing. And they made their SMART goal this year based on wanting to see the growth within the Wisdom Wednesday. So, whereas before we've always talked about how, gosh, it's hard, when you're on an elective team, because what language do you guys talk? It's like one person is choir and one is PE and one is STEM and all the things. But this, I feel like, has really brought them together, and it's made me really proud of them for wanting to step up and support our other teachers, but really support our kids and give them those tools, you know, to put in their toolbox. Because yes, it is one day, it's one test, but we have to take tests the rest of our lives. You know, if these kids want to be an electrician one day, they have to take a test. If they want to be a plumber, if they want to be a paraprofessional for our district, they take a test. And so it's more than just about that test. It's really giving these kids tools, and our elective team has done a really great job supporting us with that. So they do a reading passage, they go over test prep with them. These are just some sample questions, really small, but they're also in your binder or in your folder. And students take that during their elective class every Wednesday. And so the next one is just a little, our graphic for our test taking strategy. And we go over that, every classroom goes over that, it's posted, our elective teachers go over that all the time with their kids for everything. The next one is graphs. So one area that we were a little bit weak in math and science, you know, were graphs. But then also on our reading test, there are a lot of graphs even within the reading test, and you're comparing two passages and you're looking at the information here and then disseminating that information and all the things. And so we are now doing, and we started last year, a graph of the week in our social studies classes. So one day a week, those social studies classes focus on graphs at the beginning of the class. They all do, throughout the school, they do the same graph. And so we kind of spiced it up a little bit this year. I say we, really Mrs. Jefferson. She has sent out polls to our teachers, and so we're taking polls on our favorite different things. And so this next week's graph, or tomorrow's graph, is you know, she asked teachers questions and then students and so then they're comparing the two graphs, and so it's really relatable for them, and they're also learning about the people that they're in the building with all the time, and asking some higher level questions with those graphs and doing that. So these are just, last year we try to get graphs that are relatable to the time of year. So we were in a classroom last year and they were talking about Super Bowl, and it was right at Super Bowl time, and so we're just trying to really grab our kids' attention, engage them, and all while giving them skills, and maybe they don't even realize they're getting the skills, but they are, and it's just a fun conversation. So we also use Edge Elastic at the middle school, and this is our summative assessment. So we give a benchmark 3 times a year, and this is just an example on the board, but so they will take a benchmark. They've already benchmarked this year in each subject area, all 4. And so then they will take another benchmark in December and then another one in the spring before the state test. And we use that information to remediate, to see what skills they're missing, see what skills they need more help with, things like that. And then also it's a great way for us to be reflective of our own practices and say, you know, oh my goodness, what's going on with my first hour? They didn't grow like my other hour. What's different? Oh, we were pulled for a fire drill once a week, or you know, just different things all out of first hour. So then that actually did happen last year. We had great feedback, and they said everything that we do is at 8:30 in the morning or 8:15 or second hour or whatever. And so we've really watched that this year of, okay, we're doing this first hour, but then the next time we're going to do it second hour and things like that, because those are things that I was so thankful that someone just said to me, and it's like, oh, that's an easy fix. We can go back and change a few things like that. So that is the end of my presentation. In your binder, I also put a test release items for math, science, and ELA. And I just really encourage you guys. I did those with our principals. I brought a science one, and I taught test taking.
We were not a fan.
Yeah, and it is very interesting what our 8th graders have to know. I mean, it's, you think like, and to see those scores that half of our kids pass with proficient or advanced, and the number of advanced kids is unbelievable in science. And it makes me feel really proud. But if you look at those math release items and the ELA and the science, guys, our kids have to know, I mean, their knowledge level is just, it's right up here. And I feel really proud of the work that we're doing. We do, peer observations, we had those going in the second week of school, and we are just trying to really create, open doors throughout our building. Our teachers are going in and they're watching other teachers teach. And one thing that I say to anyone that will listen is, if I was put back in a classroom tomorrow, I could knock it out of the park. And I feel bad for all the kids that I taught beforehand, because now I know, and we have wonderful, wonderful people right here in our hallways, and just taking that time and using our teachers' time, and they're going in and they're watching other teachers teach. They're coming out, we're having great conversations, and they're saying, oh my gosh, did you see Mr. Blue did this and now I'm gonna do it, and different things, and doing some co-teaching experiences where some teachers are going in and during a lesson they're actually co-teaching with some of our newer teachers. We talked about Wisdom Wednesday, Graph of the Week, co-teaching for observations. We also do walkthroughs. We're really strategic at the middle school, and we try to get in every classroom every week. We split those up between the admin. Ms. Mashburn comes up and does walkthroughs with us, and that's a great experience. Lots of PD for our teachers, all of them. Just really proud of the middle school. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Good job.
Thank you. Is all the tests they do on computers now?
Yes.
At every ACT,
Yeah, even the writing test.
every writing and typing? I assumed it was, but I just,
I think the fall ACTs was a big different pencil this year, and then the spring is.
and then the state test, the
State test.
elementary school kids,
Sorry,
all,
third grade.
it's all.
I do wanna thank both of you and those of you that work at the middle and high school, just for the presentation, for the work. I mean, I had written down a word that I think prevalent through all that is just intentional. I think that's what is really changing every day. We get more intentional. And everything that you've heard these ladies say, they are examining everything they do, and if it's not working, they're doing something different. And I mean, you don't know if you're not looking, you've gotta be checking those results, and that is what they're doing. And we are already seeing, growth, and I just expect that to continue to explode as they put more time and effort into that. Right people, right places, using data, and it's going to improve. We're seeing that, and it's gonna continue to improve. Thank you.
Great presentations. Item F, superintendent's report.
Alright. So today, we have 525 employees, 3,708 students. It's a little bit higher, close to 100 higher than we typically have at this time. We have 161 pre-K students with 16 additional pre-K 3 and Adventure Head Start students. Again, that number is up, which is good, because we know we have those babies in kindergarten, so we want as many as possible in the pre-K before they come to our kindergarten classrooms. 440 at Cherokee, 499 at Greenwood, 504 at Heritage, 727 at the middle school, and 1,361 at Central and the high school. We have a few transfer spots available in our elementary grades, just sporadic from building to building, but no transfer spots at middle school and high school. We're pretty much full to the brim. So bond updates, really finishing some of these projects. As I mentioned, we had the meeting we had before this was for potential bonds projects, new architect company for the next bond. We're finishing one and starting one at the same time, so that's interesting to juggle. Greenwood Classroom Edition, the painting is complete, ceiling tiles are in. The flooring was being done today. I was up there helping, trying to figure out what kind of pattern. I think we decided no pattern. We might have needed a mathematician there to help us figure that out. So we will hopefully be in that building over fall break. I would hope that we'd be able to get everything in there, get the classrooms ready, and maybe open that up. I'm gonna guess Josh Allen, even if he has to work the evening before school starts, overnight would be in there because he's visiting that music room about every 5 seconds, I think, right now. He'd already before school started, moved his music room from one end of Greenwood to the other, just so he could be really close to the door, I think, so he could be checking to make sure how that work was going. It's pretty cute, I love it. The Greenwood white wing windows are still in the works, so they'll be replaced, they're ordered. We're
Just finally came in.
just waiting, good, there we go, so we'll have some new windows in the white wing. We've been working on the T-Max steps. We watched a little bit of that process last week as they slowly jackhammered giant steps, one tiny little piece at a time. But it looks like maybe it's not going to be as bad as we thought, which would be a very good blessing. It would give us a little extra money to do some of our other projects, but we think we're gonna have some answers on those in the next week. That
What's that?
who's doing that piece, the construction piece?
Right now, we're just doing the demolition crew,
Okay,
so we have not bid out, So we just had to find out what we had underneath there first.
what's underneath, what needs to be done?
So right now, it actually is very promising. So that's good.
We have, we're wrapping up most of the other bond projects, as you know. We have a long list of things that we would like to accomplish, but until we get through the steps, we didn't know if it was gonna be $100,000 fix, a $200,000 fix. So we have tons of ideas ready, on the list. But as soon as we get to this piece, then we'll know, and then we'll be able to finish those final bond projects. Just a few celebrations, child nutrition, as you know, a new company, new processes, all of our students are eating for free, so that is a great something to celebrate. Our new company, I was just like, I know you were there. We've had growing pains, but I'm telling you what, this man right back here, has been working so super hard. We are so lucky to have him. The partnership is going to be a good one. Even as we have started and we've run into some bumps and things in the road, they're quick to come to the table, take ownership and things that maybe didn't go as planned, and then have really, they're just rolling with it. They're like, if we can do it better, we're gonna do it better. And so that's what we wanted, that's what we needed, and that's what they're really going to deliver. I think they're showing us that. They're really showing us integrity for what they had promised us. Our numbers are up. For district-wide breakfast, 7% more are eating breakfast right now. 13% more are eating lunch. That's a district average. Sorry, high school pulls that number way down because high school kids don't want to eat. I think it's not cool. I don't know, what that is. Or they're not there. So if you look individually, at that, so like say for example, Cherokee, 17% more kids are eating than last year, but 79% of the kids at Cherokee are eating. So that's a great increase right there. Greenwood, 22% of the kids are eating lunch every day. Sequoia is a little bit down on lunch, but they almost all eat anyhow. It's just whether or not you have people that are lunch bringers or not on any given year. But their breakfast numbers are up 25%. Heritage at Sequoia. Heritage, 14% more kids are eating breakfast and 21% are eating lunch. Middle is 8% breakfast, 9% lunch. High, 2%, we'll take it. More kids are eating, might be low, but we're working on it. We've got some ideas. Lunch 8%, and really we wanted, I think, a 10% raise. So we are right where we wanted to be, a little bit higher. There's some things to come, like grab and go carts.
That's what I was gonna say,
things
are
like that.
those available?
Not out yet, but they will be. We're working on that.
It will go up
Yes.
with high school.
That will change middle and high school, I think, drastically, when we have a cart in the doorway when they walk in and they can grab something that's portable and walk on. Taking over a district this size is a huge endeavor, and we got Chartwell's hired late July, and then kids come 4 weeks later. You're talking about changing kitchens, changing vendors, changing employees, and like I said, I think they've done a really good job for the time that they had to get ready, and that's just going to get better as time goes. Lacey has really been working with Heidi, looking at numbers, came in and brought information to me today, is able to show, this is the amount we got in reimbursables last August, this is the amount of reimbursables we have this August, from each of the different programs. We're still above the line, and that's all we're looking for. We're looking for great quality for our kids, great food for our kids and our staff, and that we can operate where we have enough money in the bank, in the savings account, so to speak, to replace things that need to be replaced. And we know the numbers are just gonna get even better than they are, so right now, I'm very optimistic that this is something that's going to work for us. But she's going to have those numbers for us monthly. I think the next couple months, I will come and just give you some of the information she's given us, and then they will do a more in-depth presentation at the December board meeting where we can see, like, right here, first semester, here's apples to apples, this is what we need to do, and so, good job, Lacey, good job. Someone, as I think Deanne mentioned, Abby, someone mentioned, Every Minute Matters. That's a campaign that we have started district-wide, and it's about attendance. It's about our students being here every day. It's about our staff being here every day. It's also about using every minute appropriately in the classroom. I know these leaders are all talking about bell-to-bell teaching, and that, we don't have a second to spare. But it's not even just those employees. I think we've applied it to all of us. We've applied it to what we do in finance, what we do in operations. We are very goal-driven, and we have high expectations. And so we are committed to using all of the minutes that we have available to us to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure students are achieving, because that is why we're here. So some attendance data is going to be coming out a little bit at a time. Already have the numbers for August. So our Sequoia average daily attendance was 92.2% in the month of August. Cherokee was 94.8. Greenwood was 94.2. Heritage was 93.9. The middle school was 92.8. And high school, and I love this because it surprised me, 94.3. I thought the high school would be the ones that were likely to skip, and they have almost the highest percentage.
And we've been dealing with some sickness also.
Yes.
Flu and COVID.
We have had a resurgence of the COVID, a little bit of everything, and which happens when you first come back to school. We're all bringing the different bugs from wherever we've been over the summer, and so
those are excellent.
those are excellent numbers. We will get those every month and look for growth, look to see what's happening. If not, we'll have some data from our staff as well. Many of the buildings individually already do that. You'll see, like when I went by the high school marquee and you had your staff attendance rate, your even contests, I believe, between the grade levels. I've seen
We're
that
gonna
in
get some
places
banners.
across.
We thought about having banners, cause I don't have enough money to give them all treats all the time.
It's a lot of kids to give treats to, but
I like that on the marquee when people drive by, that's pretty cool. I saw that the other day.
Clayton Valdez is working with us and has been doing a lot of branding. If you'll notice the things that we're putting out on our social media, but he also filmed, I believe Natalie had the idea for me, that's something she'd seen in another district, and we did a video with different attendance facts, and he's put that together, and he's going to put little blurbs of that out and then have the entire attendance campaign. So we're really trying to get some information out to our public about how important it is for kids to be at school.
Good for kids and good for parents.
Yes. So that's on our attendance. The OSSBA Zone 8 meeting is October 8th. I have, Brittany enrolled each of you in that for us. If something happens, you can't go, just let me know and I will let them know. But that meeting is in Muskogee on October 8th. Deanne and I are attending a strategic planning meeting with OSSBA on the 1st or 2nd of October. We've got some school climate transformation grant money that's going to allow us to work with OSSBA for that strategic planning piece that they offer. We have a bunch of those pieces already created. We are long-term thinkers, we are planners, but what we don't have is someone that helps us put all those pieces together. And so we're gonna meet with them and see what they have to offer. It will be not the entire service that they do, because quite frankly, I believe we're above where they would start with some districts that had not done any planning. But they're going to tailor it more specifically to us and what we need and what plans we already have, and help us create a fluid document that can really, I hope, help us through a long-range planning, a 10 to 15-year plan that goes on along with, future bond plans, but future academic plans, what we need transportation, operation-wise, so that it's something that we can all look at as a group and our community can look at and see the roadmap for where we want to go in the future. So pretty excited about that. We would hopefully bring something to you in the October board meeting to vote on for that piece. We are going to have to change the graduation date. Sorry. OSSAA contest switched a weekend back. We thought we had planned around it, but plans change, and so we have to change. Natalie has put some things out to her senior parents, maybe got some input as well from her staff. So we will have some survey data to see what their preference is. Obviously, we can't make everybody happy, but we'll do our best to choose something that is best for the whole. What we would look at, I believe was on the survey, was Sunday the 18th. We were supposed to graduate Friday the 16th. But there are state contests 16 and 17. So we could look at Sunday the 18th in the afternoon, the evening of Tuesday the 20th, which is our students' last day of school, or Wednesday the 21st, which is our staff's last day of school, or go all the way out to that Friday, which is the 23rd. When do you expect to have data on that decision?
We told them Friday at 3 p.m.
Okay. My only concern about the Friday is it's the beginning of Memorial Day weekend, so I'm afraid that that's going to be an issue for families. So, we'll see what information we gather from our public, and then we'll make an educated decision from that point. So that will be coming, and we'll bring that calendar revision to you hopefully next month in October. And that's all I have to say.
Comment, I'm gonna tell Colin, get back there, I'd eat lunch twice and it was significantly better.
Good deal.
Had nachos today and they were great, so.
Macho nachos, right?
Macho, I didn't know it was supposed to be mucho, it said macho, so.
It's macho.
It is
Yeah.
macho.
Did you feel macho afterwards?
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
great.
good.
I sent a group that I'm involved with did a state report on truancy, and part of the idea is that the best practice in truancy is to move away from court involvement, because that doesn't always help families. And I sent it to Tanya, but I read it myself, and what I was really impressed with is a lot of the early interventions that they recommend in lieu of court referrals are things that we are all, as I read through it, I was like, oh, we do this, we do this, we do this. So it was really cool to see what is seen as, best practices nationwide, and these were recommendations for changes in Oklahoma, and TPS is doing almost all of those already. So it was really cool to see that.
I did share it with principals, and some have even answered back on some of them, same observations that you just had.
It was very cool.
Item G, superintendent custodian report. We will have a discussion, vote to approve the monthly.
The bank balance at the end of August was $12,507,000.
Good evening, I will be going to work. As you can see,
The bank balance at the end of August was $12,579,124.57. Receipts for August were general fund, $3,353,377.65. Building fund, $7,443.51. Sinking fund, $20,342.55. The bank balances at the end of August were, for general fund, $6,851,671.68. Building fund, $4,776,443.83. Co-op fund, $110.55. Bond fund, $762,578. Sinking fund, $188,320.51. And activity fund, $1,002,084.44. Our utilities compared to last August, the electric decreased by $4,752.30. Water increased by $9.61. And our gas increased by $2,997.31. You guys have any questions?
Do I have a motion? I'll make that motion. Second. Any discussion? Aye. Aye. Ms. Crawford and I. H, we had on the agenda a discussion and vote to approve or not the estimate of needs for the 2024-25 fiscal year. I was thinking this was one we're tabling, we're not. So, discussion and vote to approve the estimate of needs for the 2024-25 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion?
I'm watching. I'm just saying, I said mute.
Okay.
Are we gonna?
Yes, so Sabrina Garner, Director of Finance Extraordinaire, is a well-renowned national presenter and is at a national conference in Nashville. Gosh, I'm saying all these good things, you can't even hear me, I just muted it. I was saying all these nice things about you, Sabrina. She is presenting at a national conference, and so she has pre-recorded for her presentation, but we also have her on the line, just in case you have any questions.
Good evening, I will be going over our 2024-2025 estimate of needs. As you can see, Exhibit A, Schedule 2 on page 1 shows our revenue for the last fiscal year was $48,342,429.83. Our expenditures were $42,220,581.73. That gives us a carryover of $6,121,848.10. That is the highest carryover that we've had in 10 years. In 23-24, we over collected in all revenue areas. Local sources would be your ad valorem tax. Intermediate sources would be your county ad valorem tax. State sources are your motor vehicle tax, your rural electric tax, and your vehicle tax. And your federal sources would be your grants. Like I said last month, we will no longer have a co-op fund as of this year, which means we won't have to move money from the general fund during the year to cover the cost in that fund. All teachers will be paid out of the general fund. On page 15, Exhibit C, Schedule 6, you will see our building fund carryover of $4,776,136.91. Our building fund budget for this fiscal year will be $5,373,336. Remember, that doesn't mean we will spend that much.
No, Brad.
A few areas where we'll focus on for the general fund will be minimizing the reoccurring expenses out of general fund. We'll be looking for ways to save on things we need for operations. For our building fund, we will look to increase our carryover to allow for a big project in the future.
job.
Do you all,
Thank
so,
you.
oh. We just got that thank you out of there, Sabrina. So I know, I mean, like it mentioned, our carryover, that it's a large carryover. I wanted to remind everyone that that is purposeful. COVID money, is done as of September 30. That gave us a good $13 to $14 million more than we normally would have in a budget. Sabrina and I, for the first time, will have a real budget this year without that large inflation piece. We have a good $1.5 million worth of expenses that were either new expenses because of an increase in a price or a cost, or that came from that COVID money that will go against that general fund budget. So although it's a large amount right now, when you take $1.5 million out this year, it drops us back down to 5, which is where we barely want to stay. That is, we can do that for a year. We can't do that for multiple years. Our math teacher would say that means the next year it's gonna go down to 4 and then 3 and so on. So, you know, we are in conversations right now every day about what we will do, how we could have less expenses coming out of general fund for this next year. So we will look at everything across the district, every department, every site, to see where it is that we can save money. We also have a healthy building fund, which is good, because if we need to, or when we need to, because we will, we would be able to take some of those operational costs out of that building fund budget. But she had mentioned on that PowerPoint, we also are interested in trying to be able to use a chunk of that money, that savings account, for a large portion. So like when we talked about bond projects at the earlier meeting, it might be that if we could possibly use $1 million towards the central renovation, keeping money in the bond for other projects. Those are just some of the ideas that we're working on for our budget right now. But this estimate of needs, what it does, it just sets out the amount of money that Sabrina can budget for. And then next month, she would come and present our detailed budget for the entire year. Sabrina, you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, you pretty much summed it up.
All right, very good. Any further discussion? Ms. Nina? Aye. Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coffin? Aye. Ms. Crawford and aye. And Sabrina. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you, bye.
Bye. Item I, the motion to table until the October regular meeting, the consideration or the hiring of an architect for possible future bond projects.
I'll make a motion to table this on second.
Any discussion? Ms. Nina?
Aye.
Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coffin?
Aye.
Ms. Crawford? And aye. Item J. Renegotiated lease purchase agreement with local bank holder Oklahoma for efficiency improvements throughout the district with Energy Solutions Professionals LLC, year 1 of 10.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Authority was given last month for us just to go ahead without that, but anything that large, we wanted to bring back to the table for you all to vote. But have all the paperwork, have the projects, will be ready to.
And we discussed it in last month's meeting rather thoroughly. Ms. Nina? Aye. Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coffin? Aye. Ms. Crawford? And aye. Item K, discussion and vote to approve the following surplus, 1 through 3. A motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Ms. Nina? Aye. Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coffin? Aye. Ms. Crawford? Aye. Item L, business items, consent docket vote to approve the following contracts and agreements for the 2024-25 school year. And this goes 1 through 4 2 fundraisers, 3 trips out of state, overnight trips, and 4 lease purchase financial obligations for the 24-25 fiscal year. Do I have
Move to approve.
I'll second.
any discussion? Ms. Emo? Aye. Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coppin?
Aye.
Ms. Crawford? Aye. And aye. And for those of you who aren't here often, we have all of these contracts on the agenda before we come to the meeting. We send those 2 or 3 days ahead of the agenda, so we have time to go over those. So where I am.
Yeah.
Item M, discussion and vote to approve the TPS Resident Teacher Mentor Committee for the 2024-25 school year.
Make a motion to approve.
Any discussion? Ms. Nemo? Aye. Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Aye. Mrs. Crawford? And aye. Item N, discussion and vote to approve the Fine Arts and Computer Science Textbook Committee for the 2024-25 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Nemo?
Aye.
Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coppin? Mrs. Crawford? And aye. Item O, discussion and vote to approve the 2024 through 2026 Gifted and Talented Local Advisory Committee.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Ms. Nemo?
Aye.
Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coppin?
Aye.
Mrs. Crawford? And aye.
I was waiting on you, Sean, we got a pattern going.
Good to see you.
I'll sleep.
Item P, discussion and vote to approve the revision, adoption of the following policies, 1 through 5.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? You have anything you would like to add
The reading
to that?
sufficiency testing, a lot of that, the legislature changed the Reading Sufficiency Act and Strong Readers Act. Also put some information in there about like dyslexia screening. The flags, it's a new policy. We actually, had all of that information in our handbooks, which obviously the handbooks are board approved, but, we did need to have a policy. So the policy just talks about beginning this school day with a flag salute. Students not wishing to participate in the pledge shall not be required to do so. That all, every school site will have the American and Oklahoma flag flown at each site. So all things that we did, we just didn't have it in board policy, so after this evening, we'll have it in board policy. Student transfer policy has to be revised every quarter, so that's just a typical revision. The diabetic management plan just put some protective language in there for our teachers. So students that have a electronically monitored glucose device, a lot of teachers will have that on their phone. So it just gives them protection for that so that they can help the child without any particular liability. And the last policy with the student athlete and activities and likeness, it's something that OSSAA just suggested that we have, talking about no compensation for images and likeness. I hope that we have an athlete that's gonna be amazing enough that we have to worry about that, but if we do, we'll have a policy in the future. All right. Ready to vote then, Ms. Newman? Aye. Dr. Eversole?
Aye.
Dr. Coppin? Aye. Ms. Crawford, and an aye. Q, item Q, vote to approve the additions to the list of permitted communication platforms for the Tahlequah Public Schools.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
He's added Zoom.
Yes.
And most likely, I'll just apologize ahead of time, as we go through this first year of this, we'll realize there's one more thing that we needed to add to the list, and hopefully we'll have a great list for the next year.
Very long list.
Yes, ma'am.
No, we're on a short list, right?
Well,
Streamline.
we will,
We're supposed to.
yes, we would, where we use things like GroupMe, or we use SportsU, or we use all those, but we're always gonna have to list like Syllogist and Zoom and any of those things that Edgenuity, programs that we use for academic reasons. We will streamline just the text type device, so we're all using one of those.
Aye.
Dr. Bach.
Aye.
Mrs. Crawford. And aye. Item R, discussion and vote to approve the schedule of encumbrances. Motion. I'll make that motion. Second. Any discussion? Seeing aye, Dr. Eversole.
Aye.
Dr. Hoffman,
Aye.
sorry, Mrs. Crawford, and aye. Item S, motion and vote to approve the following personnel items, and it's 1 through 10 on 2. Employment, we have names now added, so I'm going to read those. ARZ, Zaguayo, LPN, school nurse. Jules Chukalate, Cherokee, part-time para-sub. Allison Hernandez, Greenwood, part-time para-sub. Ruth Moorhead, Alcoa Middle School, special ear care professional. Matthew Stout, PHS, part-time para-sub.
Second. Was that your motion?
No,
You just.
I made the
Yeah,
motion,
yeah,
yes.
okay,
Thank you. I've been doing this since 3 o'clock. Getting tired, past my bedtime. Ms. Nemo. Aye. Dr. Eversole.
Aye.
Dr. Hoffman. Aye. Mrs. Crawford. And aye. Do we have any new business? No, ma'am. We are now adjourned. Yay.
That's been our